Great. So we are back again with the next episode. We had a leave yesterday. So what did you do today and yesterday?
Well, yesterday was Independence Day in India, so happy Independence Day to all the Indians out there
Yep.
and everyone who's celebrating freedom.
Awesome. And I think we should make it a point to even shoot during the leaves, or probably I don't know what we should do about that. Should we fill in? Should we not fill in? That's a discussion that we need to have internally.
A decision left outside the podcast.
Awesome. Yep. So what are we talking about today?
Content.
And what do you mean by content?
Well, content can be anything, actually. There's so many different forms of content. This podcast being
Yep.
a form of content.
Yep.
Blogs being another form of content.
Mm-hmm.
What goes on your website being content. So there's a ton of things that work out to be content. With I think, how does content really work, especially for businesses, B2B businesses, and how it applies in a B2C world as well is very, very important. Because the end of the day, it's people like you and me who consume that content,
Right.
irrelevant of whether I head an enterprise or I'm doing grunt work.
Yeah.
I'm still consuming it, right? Or a housewife at home.
Yep.
Doesn't matter. So how that content plays out. And personally, I think content gets very clickbaity when ideally, in my personal view, it should be very exciting. It should be told in an interesting format.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be, for want of a better word, a story behind what you're trying to convey. Because
Got it.
we're all relational. We're all people who want to hear stories. I mean, I guess I grew up in Africa, so we had this thing when we go out camping, we'd sit around a fire,
Mm-hmm.
and there'll be one of the elders or the older people. They'll come and they'll tell a story, or somebody will tell a ghost story, whatever it is, right?
Yep.
It's still stories that are being told, and I don't remember any of the stories, but I
Yeah.
remember the situations and the moments. That's
Got
the
it.
difference. So it gives me a bit of recall as well when the story is being told.
Got it. So what I think we should follow suit is we should talk about how you tell customer stories effectively. That's one piece that that is the most uh, powerful and so to speak, something that has very high conversion value.
Very true.
Yep. So according to G2, they did a recent study and they found that 73% people in the last 12 months have looked at case studies and made decisions. So that's a big
Oh,
number.
wow. Yeah,
Yep.
that's a huge number.
Yep. But the way companies talk about these customer stories are really dull and boring, and they don't cut across. And this is what you're talking about is a bottom of the funnel content.
Right.
And let's dive more into it
Yep.
today.
Awesome. Interesting that you should mention customer stories,
Right.
because I personally think that if you are providing something
Mhm.
as a service or a goods,
Mhm.
your customers are going to talk about it.
Yep.
Who else better to go and proclaim your expertise than a
Yep.
customer? And so the value goes, instead of you yourself going and saying, hey, I'm here doing this, I'm here doing this.
Yep.
That's kind of like blowing your own trumpet.
So true.
But if you get a customer to tell that story in the right way,
Mhm.
and what that way is, and there are multiple ways we can do that, but what that way is, I think we should deep dive. But at the end of the day, when the customer tells that story, it has a larger impact on the person listening. And I guess that's why you get that 73%, action being taken.
Yep.
That G2 is talking about.
Yep. So it's more in terms of a proof, so to speak. Like, hey, this service, this product actually works.
Right.
And but it's not like so straightforward that you can go to a customer and say, hey, customer, listen, I want you to tell me the story in the format that I want you to tell me.
Right.
And I'm going to take that and then I'm going to create a format as a case study and I'm going to push it out. And there are several reasons why this is not possible. And one of the big reasons is that every big large organization wants to be very careful about proprietary stuff.
What's
Right.
being said, how it is being said, and you've got that legal team behind.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you just can't go and get people to like spill the beans.
Right.
So how do you really do that? So but before we get and dive really deep in, I want to go completely in a whole different note. Talking about stories,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to talk about an ad that you saw
Mm.
that resonated with you, and we'll link it back to customer stories, right? So I think it's something that will help us have a great conversation. So, what's an ad that you like the most that you saw in the recent past?
More than an ad that I saw in the recent past, I
Mm-hmm.
think an ad that has stuck with me for quite some time. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very interesting ad. The ad has only one word
Mm-hmm.
that is being spoken, and the word is sorry.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And this is by none other than Mercedes Benz.
Oh, okay.
They had come, I think it was back in 2006,
Mm-hmm.
and they were talking about ABS brakes on their new E-Class.
Mm-hmm.
So you have Jack the Ripper waiting to collect a soul,
Oh, yeah.
and he turns to the person and says, sorry, and the guy turns back and, automatic braking hits, he stops, does
Yep.
no accident,
Mm-hmm.
turns around and says, sorry, back to Jack the Ripper, and he's like, "Ugh." But
Got it.
it's a beautiful ad where they've communicated so much,
Mm-hmm.
not using words,
Mm-hmm.
but rather using the journey of a person who is actually using that product.
Got it.
Right. And
Got
so that individual, even though he was distracted and looked at Jack the Ripper, didn't see the accident that was going to happen, the vehicle stopped by itself. And so suddenly you're told that, or it communicates to you very clearly that automatic braking with the ABS really works.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, coming back to what you just said, right? Stories are human.
Yep.
And what you just mentioned about this whole one word so sorry, which has a big set of emotions, is laden, it's heavy,
Heavy.
right? So
Yeah.
it's not something that you use on a everyday basis, and yet it is able to transpose itself to a whole different level, right?
Correct.
And bringing that back to the framework of how do you really bring customer stories, what do you think B2B companies should do to make more customers talk about their stories?
So ultimately, the problem with customer stories or case studies is that it's written down in a specific format. And this is my take on it.
Right.
You get a whole bunch of data points that they
Mhm.
talk about and say, oh, this has happened, that has happened.
Right.
But they've actually not told the story of that organization which has used the service
Mhm.
or product
Mhm.
and shown how by them using it,
Mhm.
there's a trajectory change that has occurred or
Mhm.
there's a significant change. That can be layered with data points,
Got it.
but there's still a story behind it,
Hmm.
right? A Jonathan that was there, who was the managing director, decided to
Hmm.
get or use this tool.
Mhm.
And so by using that tool,
Mhm.
they subscribe to a new thought or a new process or whatever that story is. So you can
Got it.
build it. You can put the data points in there instead of saying, oh, company XYZ grew by 23% because of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Got it.
which is a very different way. And this is my opinion. And I
Got
think
it.
that's where people lack the ability to tell the stories properly when they're trying to sell more than they're trying to communicate that this has an end objective or an end goal that has changed the way an organization has interacted with your product or service.
Got it. I think people are stuck. I mean, usually marketers are stuck because of the format. It's this text-based thing
Yeah.
that's put together, and probably has a graphic designer,
Mm-hmm.
a copywriter, who brought together and said, hey, these are the data points, and now this is the format, and then they have this format of probably the star or situation and what they did and what was the outcome and all of that,
Right.
and then they arrive at this whole aspect, and then you start to see it getting shaped from
Right.
there. And so I think format largely is the big challenge. Probably it's a red flag, and that's what stops people. What do you think?
Um, I think being girdled inside that format and
Right.
not trying to think outside of how best to use that format is a problem.
Got it.
Because you have 90% of the time, I'm not going to say 99 because a lot of people do think outside the box, but 90% of the time what happens is, hey, let's go check how my competitor has done
Oh
this
yeah,
case study.
absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you come in and then you say, okay, I should do something similar, make it better. But it's not, hey, how can I blow somebody who's reading this
Got
out of the world so that they actually engage with this?
it. Got it.
That mindset difference. So yes, the format in itself can be limiting when you've done it so many times, but I don't think it is truly a limiting factor. So for example, podcasts are there. You can bring a guest on board. You can have a conversation with the guest. While having the conversation, you can also get a beautiful testimonial.
Absolutely, yes.
Right?
So you bring in a guest who is your customer. Your
Exactly.
present customer. Yeah, got it.
Right. Now, once you've got that testimonial, that can go on your website. Where you apply it, etc., is up to you.
Got it.
However, if I do it so many times, it can become very monotonous. And so you don't really think, how can I get a better testimonial or a better story out of the person that I'm talking to?
Yep.
By the time you're at episode 10, it's the same question again. So what do you think about this? Right? So it becomes so that's what I mean by the format itself doesn't matter. It's how you operate within that format that action is essential. What's your take on it?
Yes, I think I'm going to talk about, probably I'll use an example, Salesforce. They do a great job. You go to their website, they have a whole section around industries. And under industries, you have, like, let's say, life sciences. And then you go inside and you can actually see all the life sciences companies. And so they have a generic text, but they back it up with stories.
Right.
Now, what I liked the most is, let's say, for example, it's consumer packaged goods. And they have a beautiful story of Kellogg's, and you should go and read that.
Right.
It's a blog, but it doesn't come across to you as, a formatted, cookie cut testimonial or a case study.
Got it.
It's alive. It's got people from Kellogg's that talk about how they're using Salesforce. They talk about AI and how AI is really helping them stay connected with customers.
Right.
And so they really come alive with that whole format.
Right.
And so the idea is, again, you could still use text, but you have to arrive at it. And I really believe it's like a format, right? So it's about how effectively, and I like to use a framework called P.E.A.R.L, right? And so it would be something on the lines of, P standing for, what's the problem that really, you are solving.
Right.
Instead of you talking about it, if the customer says, hey, this was our problem, that is opener, right? So just like a movie that opens, with a, the opening scene where you find the narrator narrating and setting the tone and the context of what the movie is. This becomes the premise of the whole, customer story in itself.
Got it.
Right. And then there's an explanation, right, which is the E from the P.E.A.R.L. And the explanation is all about how you can take them through this whole journey of explaining, in essence, about what did you do, or probably it could come from the customer, or probably it could come from you. That's a piece that's very, very important.
Right.
And then you move and switch over to the A, which is achievements. And now you switch gears and give the reins back to the customer.
Right.
And the customer is now, talking about, hey, this is the outcome that I got. This is an ROI I got, and it's been very helpful.
Right.
And then you're able to, like, again, ask the customer, how and what, and there's a storytelling. It's again being vulnerable. It's again being like, hey, it's not that we figured everything out, because see, most of the case studies have this, when they talk about achievements, it's more like, we knew it and we got here and this is what it is. And so there is a sense of disconnect, right? So every time you the more real you are, the more you are connected.
Right.
And then very quickly moving on to, R is you make a recommendation in saying that, okay, if this happened for Kellogg's, this could happen to you as a CPG company.
Right.
And this is our recommendation. So usually customers like Kellogg's have these are the challenges that they have, and we have solutions for that, and we have
Got
the
it.
recommendation. And finally, you actually provide a link, to go and check things out. It could be a real URL link,
Right.
or probably it could be a link to a resource, or probably, you furthered them down in the whole content funnel, right? So,
Right.
so that's the whole point there, right? So it's about, and you can use this anywhere. Like you use it in a podcast. You could probably like invite your customer to an event where you are doing a fireside chat, or let's say you're doing a session, and you could probably like, instead of you doing it, you hand it over to a customer,
The
and
customer
now
talks for you.
and the customer talks for you, right? And again, the customer is not going to go all the way in, lovey-dovey and talk about, the good stuff that you have done for them, but in some format that's going to come across
Correct.
to the audience, right?
Very true.
So that's how I would see this going. So coming back to you, like in terms of one was podcast, right? What are the other things that you've seen and podcast events? What are some other things that you've seen that can elicit customer stories out?
I think videos are a very powerful way of communicating
Yep.
customer stories.
Yep.
But the problem is everybody goes for a Q&A video.
Yep.
Instead of actually telling the story of that company. Because
Hmm.
you're doing two things.
Mhm.
You're giving an opportunity for the customer to talk about himself.
Mhm.
You're also talking about how you made him go through that journey of what he's achieving in a better way
Mhm.
by giving your solution or
Got it.
product.
Got it.
Now, you're basically belling or killing two birds with one stone,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And I don't think people do that enough.
Mhm.
I think everybody goes and says, okay, I have a case study I want to talk about company ABC.
Hmm.
And you say, okay, how did we help you? That's
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
There is no, hey, what was your journey? What were you trying to achieve?
Hmm.
Where were you traveling to?
Hmm.
Okay, and we came in here and we fit into that perfectly and we helped you
Yep.
move the needle.
Yep.
That is kind of missing.
Yep.
So videos are amazing because you can also go and have multiple viewpoints. Nothing is left to the imagination. You're
Yep.
showing them as is everything. In fact, there's a company that I know produced a couple of videos.
Mhm.
They're a funding company. They provide debt finance.
Mhm.
But the way they were talking about grassroots level organizations, they were
Mhm.
talking about their journey of 50 years ago. They started as a shed somewhere,
Oh, wow.
and they took them through that entire journey.
Mhm.
And so when that company wanted to scale, they approached this funding company, and then they helped them out, and
Got
they made that link so beautiful.
Hmm.
So it was a very, very different way of telling that story.
Mhm.
But you notice that nobody from the funding company spoke a word. It was all the other company
Oh,
talking.
absolutely. Yes.
So it was beautiful. So it's
Got it.
about how you craft it at the end of the day. So
Got it.
events, yes,
Mhm.
you get to bring people to a fireside chat. You get them to talk from a keynote perspective. You
Mhm.
get them to interact with you brilliant ways. Podcasting, where you can, it's similar to a fireside chat if you
Hmm.
actually think about it.
Hmm.
It's like us sitting and having a conversation. And if we take that conversation and we deep dive,
Yeah.
it becomes a beautiful story. Videos can be crafted and very well executed. You can do that with audio as well. But these are all different formats. Then there's even the good old text,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
If you get a really good writer, story writer to come
Hmm.
in,
Hmm.
and that writer can actually take those points and break it down and link it through with a beautiful story,
Hmm.
you'll find that just comes alive.
Absolutely. Yes.
And the beauty about writing, which I find, is that everything is left to the imagination,
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
Unlike video where nothing is left to the imagination.
Got
So when you write,
it. Mhm.
your brain cells are going, bang, 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 it's
Yep.
just firing away. And so
Hmm.
you really draw the reader in.
Hmm.
That's how much power you have. But are companies really utilizing that as a tool? That's the
Absolutely.
question that's there.
Yep.
Irrelevant of what format it is. Are they using it to its full potential?
Got
That's
it.
where I come in from, and I
Mhm.
say this is how it should be done.
Got it. And other part, when you just talking about these things, one of the things that I have noticed is that these things really fail because the company always wants to be the hero of the story,
Yes.
and they don't change. So, from a narrative writing point of view, the hero of the story is the customer,
Mm.
and then the company, is probably the guide who helped. When you look at the story arc, the
Right.
company is the guide who helped the hero to have his or her own day. And
Correct.
so the idea here is to change the narrative, and also to be able to like bring the customer as a co-creator in the journey of this whole content creation piece itself, right? So again, the hero comes together, and you craft the story together, and you have a brilliant piece out there, and then people are able to like see that and say, hey, wow, I mean, if they can be brave and they can actually go through all of this and achieve this,
Yeah.
then we could also. And so now you're able to give room for people to like imagine them to be part of that story.
Right.
And so the meta narrative is now like much more dispersed, that
Right.
everybody feels that I'm part of that big story. So it's no
Exactly.
longer and every time a company tries to talk about itself, and it's trying to talk about the laurels that it has won for itself, there is always a dissonance and there's a disconnect.
True.
And so I think that's a huge factor from that point of view. Great. So I have a question that we got, from our close group, which
Mm-hmm.
is, how do you refresh your content strategy? So any ideas that you have, since you
Mm.
have been producing a lot of podcasts? So
So, I don't want to throw names here, but we've been working with this company that's trying to reposition themselves in the way that they're talking to their potential customers and their customers.
mm-hmm.
One of the things that everybody assumes straight up is, okay, I've repositioned, I need to redo everything. But the reality is you don't really need to redo everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're looking at a piece of, you're looking at a cake.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at it from this angle. Now you've changed the angle and you're looking at it like that. It's still a cake. So if you created your content in the right way,
Mm-hmm.
all the base elements of the cake is still there. You
Got
can
it.
still use it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Simple edits might just do your job. You don't really have to say, okay, let's bake a new cake.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right? I know it's a weird analogy, but I think that best describes about how content can be refreshed. It's just about changing the perspective of how you look at content. It's not about recreating something new. I think one of the worst things that you can do is 5 best ways to improve yourself in 2022. And then the following year, they say 2023.
Yeah, got it.
Right?
Got it.
You're not literally changing anything. It's still the
Got it.
same 5 things. Still, does it help with SEO? Perhaps.
Hmm.
Does it help in certain matrices? Yeah. But does it really change or help the decision maker make a choice and say, okay, this really makes sense? That I don't think takes place.
Got it. So what you're saying is like, it doesn't really matter what you're going through. You could probably add a fresher perspective, and that fresh perspective could then like still help you with whatever you've produced so far, and then you can look at it from that strategy point of view. Got it. Awesome. Great. So I want to tell all the listeners a quick story. A story is, while we were starting podcasting, and I was traveling to Israel, and I wanted to take this kit with me, and that's when we bought both these mics, and I thought we should be able to like set this up and do it so much so with ease, and we were new to the whole world of podcasting, and of course we did a little bit of stuff and all of that, and I was looking for this one device that could probably like connect these mics, which have got these XLR cables to the laptop. And I don't know if you know this, but when you're podcasting, you can't connect 2 mics in one time to your laptop. I mean, these mics come with a USB-C, right?
Right.
And so one of the most interesting things that happened was that I was at my church and I saw them using this device, and that's the device that I want to show you, right? And I don't know if you can get this in the frame. It's called Evo 4, right? And probably okay, great. So I think this is what it is, right?
Audience.
So yeah. So what
Evo
this
4
does
audience.
is you could plug in two mics in, okay, and bring it to your laptop, and then pull it to Adobe Audition or whatever software you're using.
Yep.
Like we use both Adobe Audition, and we also use Descript. And that could really be really helpful. And that's a tip that I want to leave with you. So if you have two XLR mics and you're wondering how you record both of this, a simple device like Evo 4 can do the magic for you. And I think you should go get one if you are having plans to do that. Again, we're not here. Disclaimer, big disclaimer. We are not here there's no affiliate marketing here, so to
Right.
speak. But these are things that we really love. And I don't know what the price was, but you go check that out on Amazon, Evo
Yep.
4. That's something that could really, really help you.
Yep. And I think we've really leveraged on it,
Oh, yeah.
especially when we have, not just for this podcast, but I'm saying when we've had so many podcasts where we've traveled, where we've gone set up in various places, it just made our lives so much easier. Because I remember a time
Mm-hmm.
we used to carry two laptops, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
everything was in twos because we couldn't.
Absolutely.
And this is like just cut everything in half, only two
Absolutely.
microphones. So I think it's a brilliant tool that we use, which for anybody who is a professional podcaster or even
Yep.
somebody who's new wants to take up and take advantage of this, go for it.
Absolutely. Evo 4. Yep. So great. It was nice talking to you. And I'm happy that we are gaining momentum. So
Yes.
day 2. So that draws to the close of this podcast. And we're looking forward to doing more such podcasts.
Likewise.
Awesome. And anything that you want to leave with? Last time I caught you off guard saying words of wisdom. Any words of wisdom?
No. I think be diligent with what you do.
Okay.
Keep trying and doing. Test multiple ways, because I think we get stuck with doing something in one way just because it works. Okay, I'm only going to do it that way. We've forgotten to be ambitious, and we've forgotten to be experimental. I love kids because they will experiment with anything that they've got. And so we don't do that, right? And I think that's something that I want to leave with people. Whatever it is that you do, experiment with it.
Great. See you guys tomorrow, and I hope you had a great time journeying with us.